Today at shopdap.com, we show you how to install a transfer case and check out how a transfer case failed. Okay, so transfer case on a Touareg. This is probably not particularly a DIY that most people will do, but we're gonna show you how. But before that, we are gonna take a look at how ours failed. If you're not familiar with this particular vehicle, this had an issue where it would make a very horrible knocking noise under acceleration. I first want to say thank you to Wolf Auto Parts. If you're not familiar, they are a company who we worked with a few times. They sell salvage VW, Audi, and BMW parts, and they helped us out with this transfer case. So check them out. They have a really good catalog they do where they take pictures of all the parts of the cars they disassemble. To me, they do an awesome job, and it's probably a great option for people who are looking for VW, Audi, BMW specific used parts. With that said, let's see how this thing failed.
6.5 hours later.
Now that you haven't seen the DIY, but I already did the DIY, we're going to take apart this transfer case and see what it looks like in there. I think it's going to be pretty cool. Starting to split open. This is about to get nasty, like a DIY colonoscopy. Oh, maybe she's splitting. Oh, there we go. All right, there we go. Let's see what we got here. There should be some chaos inside here, I presume. That noise, everybody said they thought it was the chain skipping. I kind of agreed, but I don't see any evidence of wear on our chain. I did loosen this. Where's the hammer? Got it. Got it. Nothing appears to be worn on this gear whatsoever, really.
Is that the hammer dent?
Well, that was self-inflicted. This is the shifter that goes from high to low. It doesn't look like it shifts. Now, maybe I'm looking at it wrong in the way it operates, and maybe the stack moves, but it doesn't appear that that would be the case. So I'm not sure what's going on there. That kind of sounds like that could have been related to our issue here. Let's see.
This smells great.
Oh, it smells disgusting. That's what gear oil smells like. Boom!
Sparks flying out.
I know. Okay, so now we have to figure out the damage that was created by me and the damage that already existed. That is the coupler that makes it all happen. So this guy goes like this in here. And that's how it's going to engage. This guy slides up and down like a manual transmission. So these are called synchros. They help everything engage. So this guy can spin separately right here, and then it can engage it when needed. And then when it needs to engage, it's going to engage up. But it doesn't appear to want to do anything. So I wonder if that's actually the issue with this trans. It's not that it was skipping necessarily, but that it was just completely jammed up and not operating. And these gears, I would have thought that we would have seen metal somewhere if this thing was just sitting there grinding on top of all this stuff, but none of the teeth appear to be chewed up or anything, and I don't really see evidence of metal anywhere. So the noise may be something broken internally within this assembly, which we can take a look further and see if we can find anything.
It's kind of a disappointment as far as seeing something.
I know, I expected it to be kind of more catastrophic than this. So this has this guy is supposed to rotate to move the shift torque. The stepper motor spins this gear and turns it. It goes inside here. That stepper motor is attached to this guy, this shift rod that is supposed to move this, there we go. That shifts in between where it needs to be.
So we fixed it?
Oh yeah, it's fixed. I can just put it back together now.
Put it back in the car?
Yeah, let's put it back in the car. Why? We already did it. Why not just do it again? Unless these gears are completely exploded inside of here, which could be the case. I don't have long, skinny snap ring pliers that will fit into this hole, because that's not the type of things that we take apart usually. See that? Now we can hammer it properly. Because we can hammer it out the way it was intended to. This. It doesn't want to come out.
Punches the air.
It didn't punch hard enough, apparently, though. Not enough to get a snap ring out. We might have to take it out the old-fashioned way with snap ring pliers. See, this is a 36 millimeter 12 point, but this, as you see, has some depth issues. So we need to solve that problem. Ah, there we go. Solved it. Hey! If you were taking apart for real, you would be doing what I'm
Probably
doing.
not have a grinder wheel on.
You probably wouldn't use a grinder wheel for most of the things that you're doing if you actually cared about salvaging. Okay, well, I think that's it for tonight. Now that we're done screwing around, here's what I'll say. Definitive fact, this chain has not been skipping. I know that.
Chain gang, as your shirt says.
Oh, hey. I am going to clean this thing up. I want to make it a goddamn necklace. I'm going to put a clock on this.
Tomorrow.
So in our sleep-deprived stupor, what I didn't notice was there's a bolt here holding this shift rod in, which slides through the casing. Don't think that's actually going to help us solve our issue, although we did start to get that out. But now we're going to try to see if we can get this portion of the, looks like a set screw that actually holds this in place, that we can maybe get it off of there and get this thing yanked off to pull the sack out.
If he didn't, you'd probably... I'm gonna die.
Yeah, don't.
I'm gonna die. I'm gonna have a pry bar in my chest.
Watch your toes too.
I don't care about my toes. I got 10.
Oh yeah, that was a dual effort.
Boom.
Did you see that? That was a twofer, that effort. I think we're back to, we need to get that clip out the bottom out. I'm shocked at how quick that went. All right, so here is what we're looking at. And we can figure out what was potentially making that noise. There should be pretty obvious, whatever it was that was making that noise should be pretty obviously f***ed up. Okay. Nothing appears to be like, no real wear of any kind on anything. Okay.
We're not putting this back together.
Oh no, this is definitely not going back together. Okay, so there's spring tension on it. That's why.
Oh, so if you take that snap ring off, it's going to be a
There
bomb.
you go. Look.
It probably won't be a bomb, yeah, but there's spring tension on there. These clutches might have been
Yo, what's up with the teeth here?
That's what's skipping.
No, they're supposed to be like that.
Oh.
Yeah, because it's got...
They slide back and forth in the spring tension. This is the wave washers here. So like this is the material side.
But that wouldn't cause a skipping noise. That's...
I wouldn't think so. I would think it would just not work. Again, back to the we still don't know what the f is going on thing. Because all of these, there's nothing about any of these teeth that appear to be like shredded.
No.
There's no metal noise. That sounded like a metal noise. Okay.
Yeah, try getting that up on your left side. Try and get it going up evenly.
Walk it around.
Hey, there it went.
Look at that. Yeah.
What's in here?
What's in the box?
Oh, what's in the box?
As we look at our assembly,
Everything looks perfectly fine.
nothing appears to be something that I would be majorly concerned about at this point. We've completely disassembled this and we have no idea what was wrong with it. But we do know this. It did fix it putting a transfer case in it.
It was broken.
It was broken. We just have no idea how. We haven't inspected the empty cases. You're 100% correct.
Is there like a spot that looks like
It could be, what I would say, given the noise that we had, it seems like it could be a bearing that was just like, that's fucked up, but it wasn't bad enough that it, like, everything was completely moving in a problematic way. More of nothing is really what we got here. So what we've learned today, we haven't learned a goddamn thing. We learned how to take apart this with only partially destroying it.
a skill that we'll never probably ever use again.
It's an irrelevant skill. There you have it. We've found nothing and we know nothing. Now we're going to show you how to replace it. So we're starting by draining this transfer case, and this is really just because we know we're going to disassemble it later. This is not something that you're going to want to do if you're changing it like we are. But again, in this particular case, we are trying to drain this. So I want to get as much of this goo out of here as possible, so we have to deal with as little as possible later. So we're going to start by supporting the transmission in the rear here, and then we're going to take out this brace. The official instructions actually tell you to remove the drive shaft completely. I'm going to try to do this without removing the drive shaft just to give people an option, but I'm going to try to do it just by holding this trans from the rear and then jacking it up when we need to. So I'm going to use this pole jack with a block of wood to support this, and then we can unbolt this rear section here. If you're doing this on the ground, you could use a floor jack on the trans here, similar to what we're doing. And that would be an option for you as well. I'm going to start by removing these 13s right here for these exhaust mounts. I got the goo all over me. Did you see all that juice come out? So I'm going to slowly thread these down because remember there's weight here that this is supporting. You are going to want to make sure you have a lot of tension on here. And I'm going to walk these down slow just to make sure that you don't have any weight of anything, that you're supported properly, and everything's going to not do any damage or hurt anything when you take these down. So you do want to make sure that is the case before you just send it down with these, because if this thing is not properly supported, all this weight will be sitting on top of this bar here. And as you can see, that guy's plenty loose, and the last thing we'll have to do is take out these. So our two mount bolts here, we actually can unbolt it here, or you can unbolt it from the transfer case. This is going to be easier to get this out because one of the 13s is here above it, which would be not as easy to get to. So take these guys out. This guy should be completely free. Now I'm going to take the bolts out for the drive shaft that runs to the front differential here from the transfer case. These are triple squares, 12 millimeter. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to slowly move this trans jack down. As you can see, it gives you a little more access to it so it's not so tucked up in there. You will want to make sure you keep an eye on the back where your drive shaft is to make sure that it doesn't get bound up and you cause damage to it, whereas the bearing that potentially it could go bad and is a common failure point. Okay, so to break these loose, we have our drive shaft bolt, the triple square in here, and then I have an 18 millimeter wrench on these nuts on this drive shaft coupler. So you're gonna need both of these to be able to break this loose. If you can get an impact in here, that would be ideal, but not everyone's gonna have one. So we're just gonna break this loose like so, and then you just continue to kind of spin them around and break each one loose. Now I got these last bolts coming out, and now this thing should be loose, which you should be able to see here, but I'm not really gonna do anything other than just kind of get it loose and sitting out of the way so that when we're ready to separate it, it's out of the way. Two connectors here you're gonna see are for the stepper motor, which would go here. We removed it during the diagnosis just to verify that there weren't any issues relating to the stepper motor that were causing our noise. There weren't, but I never reinstalled it. So this is simple to remove. It's only 4 bolts that hold it in, or actually 3 bolts, I think 1, 2, 3. And you can take a look where we'll show you those on the transfer case off the car. So now we're gonna remove the drive shaft bolts. So I'm gonna take them off with an air gun. This is something that you're probably not gonna have access to. So if you are doing this manually, you should be able to hold a wrench on the backside here and these are 18s, and then an 18 on the front side, and crack them loose. That should be fairly simple to get this done, but we're going to be using air to do that so that we don't have to work as hard. We're going to be removing the rest of these. I'm going to take all of these off because I want to get this rubber joint out of the place, because I think we're going to need it out to remove it and get the space we need to make everything move around here. Okay, so all of our bolts are off. I'm going to get a pry bar in here, and once we get that union kind of separated, we should be able to get this rubber bushing separated. Okay, so it turns out that we can't get enough movement that we need with the support bearing bolted in here. So we're going to unbolt this so that our drive shaft has a little more movement to it. All right, we should be able to just get a pry bar on the front side of this and pop this thing back. This should give us the play we need. Yeah, there we go. That's exactly what I was trying to do. All right, so what seems to be good is I can get that drive shaft kind of pushed up like this, and then we can get this thing cleared and worked out of the way. Now, this should mean that we don't have to take the drive shaft out because you see it's kind of up and out of the way. All right, now we're gonna lower our transmission down and our transfer case. Really, the reason why we're doing this, first you wanna make sure your drive shaft is free here, but we gotta get to all these bolts on top of the transfer case. There's some around here, here, and then they run around here. So we need to get to all these bolts to loosen them. So we're loosening this down to drop that down as much as possible, and then we can unbolt it and it'll pull back. Now we have a trans jack that we're gonna have to support this thing in place once we get it in bolt. I'm gonna start with these top bolts because they're the hardest to get to, and then the last bolts we're gonna take out are gonna be at the bottom here. You may consider cracking these loose, but I would highly recommend not doing much with them until you're ready to come out. These should be the last bolts you mess with. So here you're looking at the mating portion that goes to the transmission. This is the bottom right here. So what you're looking at is the bottom bolts here, and then they go up and around. So these are the ones you're gonna have access to. So clearly these two on top are gonna be the hardest to get to, and then as you go down, it gets a little bit easier. So we're gonna start with the top bolts here. And remember, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 bolts. Okay, so just to show you what we're working with, this is our extension we're using to access the bolts. And the reason why is because we can get from the back of the transfer case all the way to the front and still have the room to kind of break things loose. So to give you an idea of how long that is, just knock down some wood. This is how long it is. It's pretty long. So now I'm getting to this other top one. Got that one out. And now our air gun is stuck. Because that's what happens.
I'm lazy.
And you can see our extension is slightly different this time. We've shortened it. So now we're going to take out these two bolts, this one and this one. You're not going to be able to see anything on camera. And then we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. Okay, so now we have 2 bolts left. What I'm going to do is lift this transmission back up. Now the reason why I'm doing this is to kind of level this thing out so when it comes back, it doesn't kind of fall out. We have our trans jack here. This thing is probably, it's not super heavy. I can lift it by myself, and I probably would if I was doing this potentially think about just throwing it up there, but because we're trying to make a video, it's going to be not particularly useful because I'm probably going to block the camera the whole time while I'm doing that. So I'm going to get this thing leveled out, and so when I break this thing loose, it doesn't just fall back on me. So we have 2 bolts left holding it in. That should be good right there. It's got a little bit of a tilt to it. And then I have some blocks of wood on here to get in between this mount here. And this is just to keep everything kind of supported in the center here, and just trying to get some extra support so that the trans jack is in a good place. We have the trans jack in place. We have 2 bolts left. We're going to take these out real quick, and we're going to crack these 2 bolts loose over here. I have a screwdriver in there. I'm just going to walk it out real slowly. Again, make sure if you're using something to support it that it's still in there good. And that screwdriver has reached its limitations. So now we're swapping to a pry bar. This wiring sheathing is just completely crumbling. Okay, so all we're looking at here is this is the mating surfaces between the two, and the transfer cases on the left-hand side, the transmissions on the right-hand side. What we're trying to do is get the splines off of that. Once we walk that past here, we'll be able to drop this thing down. So all we're looking to do is look up in that hole, make sure you get that shaft off of the transfer case, and then you can drop it down. Oh yeah, there we are. That's all it is. There we go. Okay, now that we got that out, one thing you do want to remove is this breather line, and all it does is pull straight off. So that was hanging up on us as we were coming down, but if you just drop it down out, it might break on you. Okay, so as per the instructions, you are supposed to replace the seal. We'll link to that, or you can find a new one. What I also would recommend, and again, you're just going to make sure you compare to make sure it's the correct one for whatever your application is. I would also recommend cleaning out all of these splines and everything, because you want to make sure all the splines on everything is clean before you start to try to go back in, because if you have any issues with getting this thing splined in, you're not going to know why, and you're going to wonder if it's because the splines are messed up. So my advice is clean all the gook out of there, and so I'm going to get all these splines cleaned up, and then we're also going to do the same thing on the trans side. We've cleaned the threads on our transmission side and on our transfer case side. I am not positive exactly how easily this is going to get in like this. We do not have the mount on here, which I think is going to give us a little more clearance that we haven't transferred over from the old transfer case yet. My plan is to try to get this thing swung in there and get at least the shafts somewhat lined up, and then swing it in as much as possible. I think that's the best course of action for us right now. Oh yeah, bro. Oh yeah, look at that. It's mating in there like a beautiful situation. Yes. Oh yes. Oh yes.
Okay, try.
Especially when it comes to big like this, you gotta like wiggle it and walk it down the splines, and then you can kind of just feel it sit where it's supposed to. I don't really know how to describe it. I wish I had a better... It's not supposed to feel like it should move. It should kind of feel like it's slotted into a place where it belongs. So now that we have that all in there, we have the 2 bolts threaded and kind of snug down. That should be enough to at least hold the transfer case in place. And I took the trans jack away from here so I can work. And I'm gonna just work these around and get these snugged back up. And then we'll give you the torque spec for all these so you can torque yours down. Now we have the transmission side bolted in, and I also installed the drive shaft. So the best thing what I did is, much like I did in the reverse order, I kind of pushed this up, and I also lowered and raised the transmission on the jack to get it to actually sit in place to where I could push the drive shaft up, get this damper in place, and then drop the drive shaft down and get it to sit in place. Now what I did then is I threaded one of these bolts in and then tapped the drive shaft in like this to where it would join up with the transfer case. That is the easiest way to get this thing lined up. That thing does not have splines. It kind of just sits on there, and then you bolt all this assembly together. So we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna reinstall our other components. Okay, so when we're tightening these drive shaft bolts, we'll put these torque specs up for you, but best thing to do, take your wrench, allow it to sit against the exhaust pipe there, and then you can snug everything up and nothing's gonna move on you. And then you can access a bunch of these while you're still in here without having to move that, and then you'll probably have to move it one more time to get the other half of the bolts on the other side. Here we got the old transfer case. We're gonna remove these 13s and then swap this thing over to our new one that's in the car. And make sure you keep all your bolts in place, because clearly some are longer than the others. All right, so we have this bracket tightened down and with those 13 millimeters in place, and we're gonna get our cross brace in, throw this up, and I'm gonna start by threading in these. All right, now I got those threaded in. I'm gonna put the outer ones in and we can get them threaded. You are gonna wanna make sure you snug these things down pretty good and make sure they're threaded in cleanly. I'd recommend potentially cleaning threads out if you feel like you have any binding or anything on the bolts, because these go into the body, and if you strip them, it's gonna be a real bad day. So I have to go up a little bit my trans because this is not in a good spot, but now we're good. And so we can thread these up. and tighten them down, and we will put the torque spec for these on screen. Now we're gonna just finish tightening up the rest of our bolts, get our drive shaft all taken care of, and we're gonna go test drive this thing. So let's go check this thing out and see how we did. All right, this is gonna be the moment of truth. Initial pullout felt smooth. We'll find out if we fix this thing real quick. Ready? There we go. No. Doesn't make noise anymore.
Hey, we now have a car.
Look at that, we got a Touareg.
We finally have a car.
We got a Touareg. Almost, it just leaks the water still. Thank you so much for watching our next Touareg video, which probably won't be our next video, but it will be our next Touareg video. Will be around water leaks. This is gonna be more of a generic video. So if you're interested in how water leaks happen on cars and how to diagnose them, be sure to check that out. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more like it.